Today I want to show you how I broke myself out of the paralysis of just existing. And by doing so, reclaimed a lot of energy and power I did not know I wasted. And by doing so, I can finally pursue the business, the relationships, just the overall life that I felt I can have. I'm going to begin right away with giving you the answer. The reason why you're stuck in paralysis is because you are stuck in fantasy. And what I mean by fantasy is you are stuck in your own head, in your own simulation of what the world is. This was something that I was struggling with for a very long time. I was raised as an only child, and this is very common amongst those. It doesn't have to be. You can have siblings and just not be that close to them. And I have a lot of men who tell me that they have brothers and sisters, but they never really hung out much, so he practically felt like he was an only child. Either way, you are more in the inner world, in your own fantasy of what life can be and your potential, rather than actually going for it. You let me know if this is the case for your own personal life, but I was also very sheltered growing up. I moved here from Iraq when I was 3 years old. It was very war-torn there, and when my parents came to Canada, there was natural trauma and stress and anxiety that crossed over. It's a new environment, new people, everything was different. And so growing up for a very long time, it didn't really change until I was in my mid-20s, almost practically when I was moving out with my now wife, Bianca. It was sheltered, not allowed to go out. They were afraid that I was going to get, eliminated, kidnapped, just terrible things. And so when I was locked inside my house, I had no one else to hang out with but my own imagination and what life could have been had I had the opportunity to go hang out and do all those things that typical children do in early elementary school into high school. So as you can imagine, what was the relationship? So I have my inner world and I have the outer world. The outer world was one of stress, anxiety, fear. Now these are typically pretty default, but and I'm going to throw in some of my own personal ones. Maybe you'll relate to it. There was shame involved, and the reason why there was shame is because failure in my culture is not looked at as very good. No one will directly say anything to you, but you can absolutely energetically feel the judgment. You can feel that in their eyes, you have dropped down on the totem pole in the social hierarchy. You can feel it, and I'm more of a intuitive and predominantly a soul-led individual. So I could absolutely feel that immediately, and I feel it very hard. So shame, embarrassment, all these combined together made it so that my inner world was a place of peace, comfort. Nothing can go wrong. And I can be inside of my potential and give myself the illusion that I'm already there, which, by the way, is one of the predominant killers of being of the type that you stay inside your fantasy too much. In other words, in the archetypal realm called the dreamer. The biggest danger of doing something like this, number one, let me actually erase what I have here. The biggest issue it's going to do is it's going to actually make you very awkward. Like, this is sort of more of a social thing. But it's going to make you very awkward. Now, why is that? Well, because nothing will ever match what's going on in here. So if you're having an idea of how a business should operate, or what it would feel like to be in a relationship, what it would feel like to stand up for yourself in a situation where you should, you can absolutely set the standards. You can make it exactly what you want. And so what does that mean? You are building routines, rebuttals, posture. You're doing all these things in an environment that is untested. And so then when you're in the actual world and you're engaging with people, everything is off because it's chaotic. It is a chaotic world. And so you haven't learned to adapt and then get involved in a chaotic world and how to make order out of that place. And so what happens is your timing is off. You overthink what you should say. You overthink if you should apply to this job or that job. You become absolutely paralyzed. When you become paralyzed, this creates incredible discomfort and a feeling that you are small. You're just a little boy, not able to actually play with the big kids. And so this, what does this do? This circulates shame, maybe anger, low self-concept, and most of all, and this is the absolute bedrock as to why you are paralyzed. You are afraid to live, afraid to dare, afraid to put yourself out there in the ultimate risk, that you can be rejected, you can fail, you can fall short of your expectations and perhaps the expectations of other people. And by having this part of us too perfect, too comfortable, it is, in a sense, a womb. You're inside your mother's womb. It's peaceful in there. Nothing can go wrong. And so the paralysis of life is simply developed because of the lack of outward action, the lack of daring to actually trip and fall in the mud, metaphorically speaking. There's also a second component to this. And this second component is oftentimes more dangerous, but of course it's more dangerous when combined. But this one is a real sleeper because you don't really even notice it. It is the overindulgence of emotion. Whenever we're in a situation, let's say that we cannot escape, we feel sort of in a way doomed to it. Maybe that's what we've accepted. It's not true, not always true anyway, but we've accepted it nevertheless. What happens when you accept something like shame, embarrassment, and just an overall low self-concept and everything that comes with that? You have a few options. You can either change it, change your environment, change the way you perceive and see yourself, find the patterns that are getting you stuck, and trying to step outside that fantasy and actually develop your ability to make order out of chaos out there rather than in here. You have the path to just keep doing what you're doing. And then the final one is you get worse. These two states, 1 and 2, put you in a place where you become addicted to the emotional state you're in. You can develop a bizarre level of comfort with low vibrational emotion. Emotions that are actually it's masochistic. I was going to say sadistic, but that's to other people. It becomes very masochistic. You enjoy the feeling of being low. Because if you've accepted the idea that this is pretty much it, that anytime I try to do anything out there, it just fails, I'm going to retreat back in here, then you have to learn to adapt. And we are adaptable beings. And this, it was more so for me, not necessarily the getting worse part, but it was keeping doing what I was doing that was causing me the issue of just liking the sadness. But I knew deep down it was a problem. And I know for you it's the same exact thing. So then the ultimate question is, what do we do to change it? What did I do to change it at the time? The first thing is what I call the impulse to change. You need to activate this sensation. The impulse to change is a feeling, an experience you get when you are absolutely at your wit's end with what your life currently is, and you are feeling this resurgence of power kicking in and giving you that altitude, that momentum to finally take action on the things you need to do that you know you need to do in order to change your environment. And so the question is, how do we activate it ourselves instead of waiting for the moment of motivation or inspiration to kick in? Because we often like to wait for an idea. I actually have a student who is exactly like this. We literally talked about this yesterday. He was always trying to find some reason out there to actually motivate him to go, but that's not actually true. He wasn't really waiting for something out there. It was just a rationalization. Because realistically, nothing will really be motivating enough to get you to go, because you're not starting with that result already acquired. It's just the seed. I want to make an X amount of money. I want to be able to socially be competent. You have to begin at ground zero. So you can always, you rationalize his way not to do it by saying, oh, I'm just going to wait for the right moment. So instead of that, we need to turn this thing on. Now, there's two ways it activates. Through an excess of suffering. So you've been suffering so much so that you are now building this internal resistance, this frustration. Now, because everything is so comfortable now, we have apps, shows, food, corn, and all these things just numb you out, sedate you, and so you're feeling really comfortable. Everything's okay, so you're not really feeling any reason to really do much. Or B, which is divine calling, what I'm describing is just a transcendent experience. You're feeling this pull that is almost not, it's not you, you don't feel it's you. You're not actually forcing yourself to do it, but you're getting the sensation that is pointing you somewhere. And you don't know where exactly, but you have to listen to it. This is, honestly, this one's rare. It happens to me, it's happened to me my whole life, and it has happened to some of the men that I've worked with, but it's not across the board. I don't exactly know why or why not. My estimation is, the Trinity of Masculine comprises three domains. We have head, heart, and soul. All of us have all three, but some of us are more predominant in one realm or the other. Somebody who overly suppresses the soul for, let's say, a very, very long period of time, it can become so dull and so quiet that you practically feel it's a non-existent thing. Now, I always believe there's still some remnants you can activate, but it absolutely can get so suppressed that you don't really hear it. But in the case that you can, you feel divine calling. Those are the two main ways that you can really get the sensation of the impulse to change. Now, how do we manually activate this? It starts with A, centering. I made a separate video, by the way, if you want to watch about shadow work and actually how to implement the practices. One of them breaks down centering. Quickly, just to say, it is the act of placing the king back on his seat. It is the act of consolidating yourself into an immovable frame, absolute solid grounding. It is the feeling also of being rested inside of your almost abdomen area. Centering also is from the Greek word kentron, which represents sharp point. I think of it as taking a sharp pointed spear, stabbing it into the ground and holding on to it. And no matter how heavy the winds are of life, you are still absolutely solid in place. What that looks like in the practical world, if somebody says something to upset you, or if you're out there trying to step out of your fantasy and you get destabilized by something, you are able to hold your ground instead of being pulled into their frame. And so practicing the art of centering, you can do it through meditation. There's a lot of meditation practices. Now, I have my own process to it that I've done for myself. It's done absolute wonders in my life and the men that I work with. And by the way, down below, I got my link to my waitlist for my Sovereign Brotherhood community that I'm going to be starting. And I'm looking for 10 men who are tired of being subjects to their heads, tired of being subjects to their heart and to a confused or suppressed intuition. And you're wanting a system and implementation to break you free from it, to then maximize your potential, bring all that excess energy back into center so you can be a commander of your own life. So if you want to be a part of this movement towards sovereignty with me and other like-minded men, down below is the waitlist. Read it and apply for it. Number 2, you have pleasure restriction. Like we said before, shows, apps, and all these other things that cause you to be very sedated, begin to remove some of them. You need to create this friction. You need to create friction. The more comfortable you are, you're not ever going to do anything. And that's the biggest prison, is comfort. So remove some of the pleasure in your life. Not all of it, of course, but enough of it that it can frustrate you. Deep pattern reflection. The ability to actually see what is going on. How far deep does this pattern go? Why is it that you repeat the same actions? Why is it that you're afraid to step outside of your inner world? What is going on? How did this even begin? What's the constellation? All the memories and the emotions, how do they all relate to one another? My personal belief and practice that I've done for myself, this one was one of the biggest influences to activate the impulse to change. Because when you see enough of what you've done over and over and over, and you notice that pattern, something else within you, some other almost sensation kicks in that says, we can change this. I mean, I'm seeing myself do it, and I'm tired of seeing myself do it, so let's change it. And this happens so often, not right away, there's no timeline to it, but it does. It almost always does. It's absolutely beautiful. Now, if you do all three, that's where the magic lies. But this week, on Thursday, I'm gonna make an actual deeper breakdown video on why is it that we are stuck in these patterns. How can we actually break that tie, and to know exactly how your past is puppeting you today. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching, and I will see you on the next video.